come from behind to defeat England and book a place in the World Cup final.
For days leading up to the most critical matches on the international stage, the global sports media inevitably circles the exact same lazy narrative. An aging squad, a 39-year-old captain who no longer runs, and a defensive structure bound to be exposed by modern athletic pacing. Studio panels dissect every metric, confidently explaining how elite opponents can easily bypass and exploit a legendary player who spends the vast majority of the match simply walking around when the opposition has the ball. But while the noise outside grows louder, something much quieter, much more calculated is happening inside the mind of the player himself. True greatness does not need to dominate every single mile of grass. It only needs to master the exact microseconds that decide football history. To the untrained eye, Lionel Messi's modern lack of defensive tracking appears to be a physical liability, an inescapable consequence of biological aging. Television screens break down tape showing him strolling casually across the halfway line, entirely disconnected from his team's deep defensive shape. Opposing managers build entire tactical systems around overloading the specific flank he occupies, operating under the rigid assumption that they are playing against a compromised side defending with only 9 active outfield players. The press labels it exhaustion. The casual spectator calls it indifference. Yet, this refusal to engage in aimless physical exertion is not a flaw. It is a mandatory tactical requirement for the preservation of an elite analytical mind waiting to strike. What football certainty consistently misses is that while Messi's feet are moving at a casual walking pace, his eyes are operating at hyperspeed. He is not detached from the match. He is actively rendering a real-time spatial map of the pitch. With every slow stride, he scans the exact body shape of the opposing fullbacks, calculates the widening gap between the defensive line and the holding midfielders, and tracks how the entire block shifts relative to the ball. A younger version of Messi broke defensive units by receiving the ball deep and physically accelerating through them. The mature genius breaks them before the ball even arrives, drifting into precise, unprotected real estate that forces the entire opposing system to compromise itself. But what happens when the tactical blueprints shatter? What happens when his team finds itself in a position of extreme collective suffering, trailing on the scoreboard against a fiercely disciplined opponent? That is the precise moment when the analytical chess master undergoes a profound psychological transformation. Former teammates who have shared the pitch with him know this internal switch intimately. There is an unmistakable shift in his demeanor, an intense focus that registers in his eyes, marking his transition into an unstoppable competitive animal.
I played with him, as you just mentioned. And what happened with Leo is that sometimes do not wake up the beast. That's what happened. And I've seen it in training closely.
When Messi enters this reactive, hyper-focused state, standard tactical limits cease to apply and the psychological pressure shifts entirely onto the defenders tasked with stopping him. From a strict tactical perspective, when elite opponents deploy an aggressive, coordinated high press to suffocate Argentina's build-up play from the back, Messi intentionally detaches himself from the physical scuffle. By remaining completely static in higher zones or floating gently toward the wide areas, he forces the opposition's center-backs into a state of deep hesitation. They dare not commit their entire defensive line forward, because they cannot afford to leave the most dangerous transition threat in modern history unmarked. This immense positional gravity creates massive micro-pockets of space for Argentina's central midfielders, allowing them to cleanly break the first wave of pressure and carry the ball forward. When opposing teams drop into a rigid, narrow mid-block designed to explicitly deny any central penetration, Messi counters by weaponizing his presence in Zone 14, the crucial attacking corridor right outside the 18-yard box. By positioning himself directly behind the opponent's midfield line, he presents a fatal dilemma to the defense. If a center-back steps out of the defensive line to close him down, they instantly create an open highway behind them for surging full-backs or secondary forwards. If the defense sits deep to protect their goalkeeper, they hand the most precise playmaker in the history of the sport the absolute luxury of time and space to execute the killer pass. Confronted by ultra-dense low blocks that effectively look like a 6-3-1 formation, where the central space is completely choked off by 10 outfield players, Messi realizes that traditional short combinations are mathematically impossible. Rather than forcing low-percentage passes into a sea of opposing shirts, he drops incredibly deep, sometimes deep into his own defensive half. This calculated retreat forces the opponent's defensive line to either push forward to follow his movement or watch him advance with completely uncontested time on the ball. The moment a single midfielder steps out of structural discipline to press him, the integrity of the low block fractures, opening the passing lanes required to release runners in behind. When central overloads yield no results, Messi applies immediate in-game structural adjustments by completely moving his base of operations out to the right wing. By hugging the touchline, he changes the entire geometry of the match. Standing on the flank allows him to face the pitch diagonally, maximizing his peripheral vision and opening up two distinct avenues of destruction. He can either deliver a highly accurate diagonal cross to an isolated target man at the far post, or cut inside onto his signature left foot to challenge the block. This sudden horizontal stretching tears apart a defensive line that spent an hour staying compact. At 39 years old, elite football performance is no longer about matching the frantic, ceaseless physical output of younger athletes. It is about absolute economy of movement. While younger players burn immense energy sprinting up and down the pitch, often recycling possession in harmless zones, Messi carefully hoards his energy for short, hyper-efficient bursts of pure execution. He intentionally allows the opponent to tire themselves out chasing tactical ghosts for the first hour of the match. He waits patiently until the final 20 minutes, knowing that when physical fatigue sets in, the opponent's cognitive processing slows down, making them highly vulnerable to a masterclass in surgical timing. Where an ordinary player sees a shot striking the post or an attacking pass getting deflected as an unlucky end to a sequence, Messi recognizes it as the immediate beginning of the next attacking phase. While the entire defensive unit collapses inward out of pure panic, spinning their bodies toward the loose ball, Messi remains perfectly calm, completely detached from the chaos. His elite spatial anticipation allows him to ghost into unoccupied pockets of space, predicting exactly where the second ball will spill. He doesn't watch the game. He anticipates its next structural state, turning chaotic loose balls into decisive, history-making moments. Ultimately, football matches at the absolute highest level are never decided by how many kilometers a player covers or how many hundreds of touches they log in safe, unthreatening areas. They are decided by pure, unadulterated efficiency during the specific actions that carry historical weight. By consciously trading high physical volume for unparalleled surgical value, Lionel Messi has completely rewritten the laws of athletic longevity. The media can continue to overanalyze the walking all they want, but after 2 decades at the absolute pinnacle, one truth remains entirely undeniable. You can successfully contain him for 84 minutes, but containment is never, ever the same as beating him.